All right, you are listening to the Nut Allergy Podcast. Today I am joined by Marni. Marni, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Do you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
Sure. My name is Marni, and I am an allergy parent. I have a son that has a nut allergy. We live in the Midwest, and I have helped him navigate through this. He's now 22 and about to graduate college. And so happy to share about that.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. So your son's 22. Any siblings I should be aware of?
Yes, he has an older sibling. She does not
Okay,
have allergies. So
really? Okay.
yeah, so the allergy came for the second one. So
Okay. And no one else in the family has allergies, or is it uh, potentially a passed
actually,
down
my
trait?
daughter does have some sort of sensitivities a little bit to dairy, but not anything that is considered an allergy. And
Okay.
nobody else really has anything. No.
Interesting. Okay. So your son's 22. I assume he's had allergies his entire life. He was relatively young when he developed his allergies.
Yes, we figured it out when he was about 15 months old. Yep.
Okay. And he's allergic to, we're on a show about nut allergies, so I assume nuts.
Yes, peanuts and tree nuts.
Okay.
And actually, he was also allergic to egg, but he grew out of that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
When did he grow out of the egg?
He was probably close to 3 or 4, somewhere in there.
Okay. Okay, still pretty
Yeah.
young. Young enough
Yeah,
where he probably doesn't remember having an egg allergy.
he does not.
Okay.
Correct.
So what's the story when you first discovered he did have these allergies? You said he was 15 months old.
Yes. Back 22 years ago, when you were starting out to raise a child or a baby, back then they would tell you not to give nuts early on.
Hmm.
I think today that has changed, but
I think it's
back
the
then,
opposite, yeah.
yeah, to create an immunity. But back then we were told don't give it. So um, I had not given him anything, but my babysitter did. She didn't have the permission to do so, but she did. And she gave him a little tiny bit on the end of her finger, and he went down for a nap. And when he woke up, he was unrecognizable. He was in full anaphylactic, eyes swollen shut. His head was as big as a pumpkin. Um, and I actually worked from home. So I had a babysitter. When I went back to work, I had a babysitter. She would come during the day and I would work. And I was in the middle of a call and she knocked on my door and she said, "This is an emergency," through the other side of the door. So, of course, I quickly hung
Oh.
up with my customer and went and obviously saw what happened and we took immediate action. So that was the
What
beginning.
what was on your babysitter's finger? Was it a peanut butter? Was it a little nut? What was it?
Yes, it was peanut butter. She was having peanut butter for lunch, and he reached out or acted like he wanted some of it. So she just gave him a little taste, thinking it was
Mm,
harmless, and just gave him a tiny little bit on the end of her finger.
interesting. And I did we invite that babysitter back?
We did
Don't
not.
answer that.
We did not.
Okay. Okay. So anaphylactic reaction immediately. Thankfully, you were there. What happened as soon as you saw your son?
Well, I'll be honest. I didn't know what anaphylaxis was. I had never heard the term.
Yeah.
And 22 years ago, I think that is really when we just started learning more and more that these allergies were becoming more common. But today, everybody's heard of it. Back then, it was not near as common. And so I had no idea that what that was called an anaphylactic reaction. I called the pediatrician and told them that he was having a reaction. But when I explained the reaction, they said, take him to the emergency room immediately. He's in anaphylaxis. And so I did a lot of learning very quickly after that day.
And so, like you said, there was not much knowledge around allergies. And assume that in your family, because you didn't have much of an allergy incident at all before your son, there was no need to really learn about allergies, right? So this was brand new information.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah. So we sent him to the ER. I assume they give him some maybe antihistamine or something like that while at the
And
hospital. Did they keep him
steroids.
up? And steroids, okay. And did they keep him overnight or was it a quick turnaround?
No, but we were there all night. We were probably there for 6 hours, I would guess.
Really? Okay.
They wanted to make sure that he didn't have another reaction. I'm sure you know, it's called biphasic, I believe it is, that where you can have a reaction, then have another reaction. And so they just wanted to observe him. But he did start to recover, while we were there. And so they didn't let him leave until they knew he was in the clear. But that was a long night, obviously. And from that point forward, I dove into the research and tried to understand, what was in front of us.
That's right. So when you went back home, obviously your lives are completely changed, right? Your son just got diagnosed with these. I assume they diagnosed him with the allergies on the
Yes.
spot. Okay. And peanuts and tree nuts right away.
It was actually just peanut, because
Just
that's
peanuts
what
right
he had
away.
been exposed to. And so we
Okay.
got the tree nut allergen diagnosis, once we went to the allergist and did the testing and all of that.
Okay. And that's when they found the egg as well at
Yes.
the time. Okay. So you do more research, you learn more about allergies. Obviously, your lives are likely completely changed. How did your lives truly change after discovering your son's allergies like that?
Well, we quickly tried to get into the pediatrician and the allergist, and it's like I was learning every day. I was sort of scouring the internet to try to understand what this was all about. And so obviously I started reading labels, trying to
Mhm.
understand what I could feed him and not feed him. That was, the biggest thing was like on the immediate, the next day he has to eat. So then the next day you start reading labels and trying to understand what's okay and not okay. Um, and so through that next several weeks is when we, went to the allergist, learned of the other allergies, went through skin testing, obviously got the prescription for the EpiPen, um, all of that. And it was just like this process of sort of shock and learning all at the same time, and to try to understand that having an anaphylactic allergy can end your life. Like it was just so foreign to me, honestly, in the beginning that that had to sink in with me. And little by little, I did things in my home I, I wanted it, after realizing what this was and the magnitude of it, I wanted my son to always feel safe at home. There was a period of time when we were like, well, do we need to get rid of all the nuts? We just won't give him the nuts. You know what I mean? Like there was this sort of decision making of what do we now do at home? Um, and the truth of the matter is we didn't take out all the nuts in the beginning. But because he did have other reactions. And so I can tell you about those as well. But through that process and the evolution of all of that is when I, ended up removing everything from our house.
How old was he when you eventually made that decision to just get rid of it all?
Um, he was probably 3.
Okay. And in that time between 15 months when he first discovered the allergy to that point, was there any sort of reaction?
Yes, there was. He had another reaction because by accident a different babysitter gave him peanut butter. And
We might need to be screening these applications a
I
bit
thought,
more
yeah.
thoroughly.
But so here's the thing that's so crazy is, me doing my due diligence of knowing, okay, he cannot have peanut butter, and that was a staple in our home. Okay. I switched to soy butter. He was not allergic to soy. Well, the jar of soy butter looks just like the jar of peanut butter. They're the same color, same size, same
Yeah.
everything. And so even though I had given explicit instructions to my babysitter, in error, he was given the peanut butter instead of the soy butter because they looked so close.
Yeah.
And that I really honestly was mad at myself. I'm like, how could I mean, it really was, I take it as my own fault for that happening. And so from that point forward is when it was all gone.
That's right. So what happened, that reaction? Did you go into anaphylaxis again?
Not really. What happened was, I did leave. At that time, it was what they call a junior EpiPen. And of course, I taught my babysitter how to use it.
Mhm.
She was very good. And literally, the minute he ingested it and she realized what it was, she read it. This is what she told me. She turned around and looked at him in the high chair and saw that he had a little red mark developing right here.
Mm.
And she immediately pulled him out of the high chair and gave him the EpiPen immediately. what I had told her is that if there's any accidental ingestion, he's to have the EpiPen. Like, don't even hesitate. Because what our doctors, at least back at that time, had told us was that it can't hurt him. Yes, it might raise his heart rate, but it could also just save his life. And so there's no point in waiting. If there's a known ingestion, just do it. And so she did act very quickly, and she did it.
Well, props to the babysitter for taking action.
And that's
That's
actually the only EpiPen injection he's ever had.
oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So he had one other reaction in his lifetime besides that time. I had removed everything from our house. But the one other reaction that he had was, I'm laughing, was with a different babysitter. I didn't even realize. But that was from a cross-contamination issue. So every step along the way, I really got quite an education. I learned about cross-contamination. That reaction was when he was about 6 years old. And that was the last one that he's had, because at that point, everything had to be, I got to the point at that point where I started to not trust anyone else because of the history. I took all the matters into my own hands. I didn't want to take it. I don't want to say I took it lightly, but I did not trust anyone at that point for quite a long time. So.
And that's understandable, right? You have 15 months, you have your I think another reaction between 15 months and 3 years, and then the one at 6 years old. So, I mean, that's not a lot. It's not a lot of reactions in a short amount of time, right?
Yes.
So, and I think we can both agree that knowledge of allergies has definitely improved over the last 10 years for sure. I don't particularly, I was too young to really understand the landscape 15 years ago. But what age do you think your son, you felt confident in your son recognizing his own allergies, where you didn't have to monitor 100%, like, okay, he can actually recognize that he shouldn't have that?
Probably, I would say late elementary school, probably.
Okay.
Somewhere in there. And just to be clear, that's not to say at a restaurant per se, but in our own home or maybe at a friend's house. He could read obviously at that point, but just to understand the warning labels and things like that. And because we had had some history already, I probably was a little bit up in his business about it, if you will. So, but he really did a great job of advocating for himself. He learned how to order at the restaurant. He always read labels. But because of the cross-contamination reaction, he had no ingestion that was known of a nut. He reacted to a Slurpee. And so that doesn't have nuts in it, obviously, and he had this item in the past. So that prompted me to move into sort of taking it a step further, calling manufacturers, the products that I'm buying in my own home, calling ahead to restaurants, things of that nature. So, but I would say probably late elementary school.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I think, what is that? Probably
Fourth, fifth,
11.
sixth, somewhere in there.
Okay, yeah, 10, 11, 12-ish. Okay.
Yeah.
Does your son remember the reactions that he's had, or not quite?
I believe he does remember the cross-contamination reaction. That one was actually not anaphylactic in the sense of like his throat was not closing, his eyes were not closed, and all of that. He does not remember the other two. He knows, and it sort of sparked his memory with the EpiPen thing, but I don't know that he full on remembers it, but he does, I believe, remember the cross-contamination one.
Yeah. When he was younger and allergies were not prevalent in the home until your son, how did your family and friends react to his allergy? Were they accommodating? Were they understanding? Were there any challenges or pushback when they got the news and had to adjust their life a little bit because of your son's allergies?
That's a great question. I know there's a lot of sort of controversy and question and different answers for something like this. I would say generally my family has been great.
Oh, good.
My extended family, they would continuously ask, like, what to buy, what to make, or do you want to bring this? Because I'm not sure what to make, or what brand of this or that to buy, those type things. So over the years, going to holiday dinners and different things of that nature, they've been great.
Yeah.
Sometimes there might be a few family members that don't understand it. And what I mean by that is nothing malicious by any means, but from a cross-contamination standpoint, sometimes it's very difficult to sort of explain it when it comes to cross-contamination as easily, but generally everyone's been very good.
And I get that completely, because I think of an example. You go over to a friend's house or whatever, and they are aware of the allergy that you have, that I have, right? Because I have an allergy too. And they on one tray there's peanut butter cookies, and then on the tray right next to it there's just regular non-peanut butter cookies. And they're like, "Oh, we made you a batch for yourself." Like, thank you. Thank you. I really mean it. Thank you. I still cannot take the risk. And I think that's the same boat, right? It's just not
right.
quite the full understanding where, like, did you wash your hands? What about the ingredients that you're using? It's just like, it's a whole world of, it's kind of gruesome. Like, it's just so much poison in the kitchen that you just never know where it is. So I just can't take the risk. Right.
And I think sometimes, I'll be honest, like when family members or even like close friends, they have so kindly separately made something like you're suggesting, and we graciously accept it, but still do not eat it because of this exact reason. And sometimes it's harder. You don't want to seem ungrateful or anything like that.
It's
So
tough.
yeah.
It's very tough. Now, growing up, how was school for your son? Now I know, and especially recently, we've developed schools have two more nut-free classrooms, maybe even nut-free schools as well. What was your son's experience like growing up in the school system?
Um, I felt that I sort of taught his class and or his administrators an allergy protocol that they did not have in place previously.
Really?
There was no allergies when he was in the earlier grades, second, third, fourth, all of that. And I would send him his lunch and, explain, and I would send safe treats that he could have if there was a birthday party or something like that. But generally, a lot of the teachers had no idea how to handle that back then. And so I felt I was instrumental in sort of helping them
Mhm.
sort of create a protocol or a policy, if you will, for this. Um, back then, I don't know if they still do this now, but they would have a nut-free table
I
where he would sit and
Yeah.
have his lunch and he could invite a friend. And if that friend had a nut-free lunch, they could join him. And that's really tough because you still feel singled out. You
Correct.
still feel like you're separate. Maybe some kids would go to the extent of feeling there was something wrong with them. Um, Obviously they didn't choose to have this allergy and yet they're still being singled out. Um, and so that's tough. During school, as he got into the older grade school years, I'm going to use the term bully. I don't know what else to use, but he
Pick
had
on.
peanuts.
Yeah.
Yes, he had peanuts thrown at his face.
Oh no.
He had in kindergarten, actually, there was a child that it was not a nut-free school, took a thing of peanut butter and wiped it on his table in front of him.
Oh boy.
He was chased around with a Nutter Butter. And each time these type of things happened, I would have to go to the principal, I would have to go to the teacher, and they would put a stop to it. And it probably aged me the stress that, thinking about him being there and having to be exposed and all of that. But he's not airborne allergic. So
Mhm.
technically, as long as everyone's minding their business, he could be sitting next to someone having it.
Yeah.
But when you're young and you're a kid, you do things you don't even realize are mean, those type
For
things. So
sure. For sure. And
I think that was one of the things that I was explaining to the teachers is that you have to to educate the kids, because they don't think of it as being, a bully or mean or whatever when they don't understand it. They have to be made to understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this was, I assume, 10, maybe 12, 13 years ago, where it's just not as prominent. Obviously, like you said, the teachers don't really know how to react. The principal, I'm sure, was leaning on you, Marni, to help them figure out what the heck to do, right? You just told me that you had to help create some policies. What did those kind of look like, actually? I should have asked earlier
Oh yeah, no,
that
go
you
ahead.
you helped.
Yeah. Well, the main thing was just, I asked the questions like, how do I keep him safe? You know, Obviously bringing in the safe snack or whatever was one thing. And really I asked them, it was worrisome to me to have a birthday party where the entire room might be filled with peanut butter cookies,
Yeah.
to be quite honest. And there's this sort of, I don't know how to explain it, but like, I'm sure you'll get it because you also deal with this, but like when you're young, it's like, why should everybody else not get something because of you being the one person that can't have
Correct.
it? And so that's a big struggle. And it's a bit of a learning situation too, because my son, you know, life isn't fair, right? Um, but this is a life or death thing too. It could be. And so that's the kind of thing that I had to explain to his teachers. So we talked about what food could be in the classrooms. We talked about for field trips how to handle those with the food, because sometimes they'll just give blanket snacks out to everyone.
Mm.
Um, Once he was, I don't know if you call it bullied, and had like the nuts thrown at him and the nutter butter and that whole thing, then that there was a policy for that, and a very stringent, they would get suspended if some of those type things would happen. So obviously the table that he sat at, all those types of things had to become sort of the rules of the class.
Yes. Yes. And in the previous episode that I recorded, um, the daughter went to school, and eventually the mom decided that she couldn't take it anymore, and she decided to homeschool her daughter. Was there any, considering that your son actually had a few incidents at school, some don't, like thankfully I never had a problem, but it sounds like your son definitely had a few incidents. Did you ever consider taking him out of school because you were concerned?
It did cross my mind um, a handful of times, but again, kind of going back to what I said, like, I know life isn't fair, and I'm thankful that nothing happened to him, and that he was diligent enough that every time something happened, he knew what was happening. He went to the teacher every time, he knew to
Yeah.
get away. And so I felt that if it didn't kill him, it would make him stronger. And I don't mean to sound like lighthearted about that and funny, but like that cliche is true in the sense that, like, even though he had to face those hardships, I do think it has made him stronger. And I do think it has made him advocate for himself. And so
Yeah.
even though, yes, it crossed my mind, we ended up working it out to where he could, hang in there. And I asked him those questions, by the way, and he wanted
Yeah.
to stay.
They really.
So, yeah.
And it's a skill, it's a fine balance, kind of like what you said before, where, you have the nut-free table, but you're the only one sitting there, and people have to be almost escorted to you, if they want to hang out with you. Or another example, you said the party where you almost feel like you're inconveniencing everyone because of your own allergy. And there's an unfortunate connection between an allergy and being ashamed, right? An unfortunate connection. It's tough not to fall into it. If you're going to an ice cream shop, for example, and there are flavors, like, you have to tell them. It might be a little embarrassing, but you have to tell them, like, hey, can you be careful, or even avoid it at all? But you said that your son did a pretty darn good job of advocating for himself, would you say, and that he grew almost thick skin, and
Yes.
it's just
That's
a
a great
matter
way
of,
to put it.
yeah,
Yes.
he grew thick skin, and it sounds like he really understood what it took to protect himself and was not afraid to do that. Is that a fair statement, it sounds like?
It is a fair statement. Um, and I will say he stood up for himself when he needed to. At the same time, he also, I think through the middle school, the the elementary school part of it, where he had to invite someone to his table and all of that, when he was learning about all of this, I think that's when he learned to stand up for himself. What's interesting about the kids and sort of when you go through, puberty and you change and who's cool and all of that, middle school, I think, and into high school is when he sort of stopped sort of, I don't want to say advocating for himself, but he didn't, instead of just explaining out loud about his allergy, he kind of went into more just removing himself, moving his seat himself, those type things versus going to a teacher or something like that, or you know what I mean? And I think that's just getting older and not wanting to be, like you said, he didn't want to be the cause of something or uncool or the center of a reason of a circumstance or something like that because of the allergy.
Yeah, it's almost a sixth sense you develop. You see the world a little differently, and how do you navigate it uh, without too many issues. And you said your son's in college now, or he's just wrapping up college.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, and
He's
then
graduating in December.
Oh, fantastic. I assume no issues in college, though maybe there aren't any direct teachers near him that he could maybe spill the beans to.
He has had no issues. One thing though, that is, he went away to college. He went 1,200 miles away. And
Okay.
so, in doing that, of course, for me, that was very difficult.
Yes.
Just thinking about sending him off, and you think, okay, I've prepared them well. I hope, but he has done so well. But one thing that we did do is we went to the head of the dining facilities there. We had an in-person meeting with them as well as a Zoom meeting before he, went to attend there and committed and all of that. We wanted to understand that they could accommodate him. And so they gave us a good feeling that they could do that, that he could freely go with and eat what he needed to eat safely. And they told him exactly what he needed to do.
Yeah.
They emailed him his menus every week and all of that. So he really had a good experience there. And then he only had to be in the dorm his freshman year. So as soon as sophomore year hit, he was able to get his own place and get his own food and his own kitchen and all of that. So
Wow. Okay. Well, that's props to the college for being accommodating and sending him allergy menus every week. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that was the thing. That's cool.
yeah, so I think now, well, so we're in Michigan, and
Okay.
he did not go to Michigan State, but they are actually known nationwide for how well they do. They have an full dining facility that's allergen friendly, free, everything. But similar to that, where he did go to school, although they don't have an allergen free facility, they took it seriously and they sent him the menu of what he could have and what not to have, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
So, and they did make things separately. Like if he wanted, he wouldn't eat off the buffet, but they would go and make him exactly what he wanted. And so, yeah, it ended up being a very good experience.
Well, that's fantastic. Were you secretly hoping, like, please Michigan State, please Michigan State?
I know. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He had it
But
narrowed down to 2 Michigan schools and then the University of Oklahoma. So he ended up
oh
there.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad that they're accommodating him very well.
Yes.
When he was in, let's go back to maybe when he was younger and he was still living with you. Um, what was your thought process behind traveling? Because traveling can be a tricky subject in terms of what do you bring, what medications do you bring, how do you scout potential restaurants where you go out. It's a whole ordeal, right? How did you guys handle travel? Did you travel a lot, for example?
We would do probably 1 to 2 vacations a year.
Okay.
And always like a spring break and then maybe another time or two, long weekend, whatever it might be, or in the summer.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is Facebook has been a huge resource for my son's entire existence since I learned of his allergy. There is a resource on Facebook called, well, it used to be called the No Nuts Moms Group.
Oh
And
yeah.
and then it changed to, I don't, are you familiar with it?
I,
It
I
changed.
yeah,
Go
I'm in
ahead.
some allergy groups, but I think I can guess where you're
Okay.
going.
Well, so NNMG, so No Nuts Moms Group. So there's a national one. It has like, I don't know, 45,000 people in it. Okay. But
Okay.
then almost every state in the nation has their own No Nuts Moms Group. Okay, so
Really? I didn't
every
even know this.
time we were getting ready to go to, let's just say, Colorado or Florida or wherever we would, New York, go for vacation, leading up to that, I would join the No Nuts Moms group of that state. And
Yeah.
I would get literally almost every single restaurant, go to, how the story, the lowdown on how to
Yeah.
go to these places and states
Yeah.
safely. And
Yeah.
so even Canada. And so I relied on those groups heavily during that time when he was young. And it was a great, great, great resource.
Yeah, for sure. I assume that's probably how you found me, one of these groups, allergy
Yes.
groups.
Yep. Although yours was the one I saw you on was the I think it was the Safe Food Finds. So
Oh,
then
okay.
that one was more of like a national, not necessarily by the state per se,
Oh, gotcha.
but yeah.
Gotcha. Anyway, yeah. I didn't even really know about the existence of these allergy groups until I started this initiative. It would have been nice maybe to be a part of one when I was, for my mom at least, for giving me snacks and stuff like that. 'Cause it's tough. Like you have to rely on the people who lived it, and I love the groups. Like you said, the travel idea I think is the coolest idea. Like what restaurants, what areas are safe in that area.
There's another one that I've used more recently for his international travel, and it's meant it literally like you can use it as a search for almost any place, and it's usually there's something you can find. So
On Facebook?
yeah,
Oh, really?
yep. It's called, I forgot the name of it, but I can get it to you. You might want it yourself to be part of that.
Yeah,
So
I might need to. Um, well, and then you also mentioned the snacks. What kind of snacks would you opt for to give your son when he was younger?
So I would research, I went to the point of calling manufacturers or going on their websites to read the FAQs to try to understand, how they processed. So even if there wasn't a warning label, obviously if there was a warning label, we would not buy the product
Of
or
course.
we would not eat the product. And there's some people even that say like, oh, my child's allergy is not that bad, so we're fine with that. We were not fine with that based on the cross-contamination
Yeah.
reaction.
The
So
Slurpee. Yeah.
yeah. And so in that case, anything with the warning, obviously we wouldn't do. But even if the label read that it was fine with no warning of any kind, I still called the manufacturer. And the
Yes.
reason I did that is because of the cross-contamination and because we as a nation don't require you to expose how it was processed. And
Crazy.
so I hope that changes someday, but for now, I prefer to work with or buy from the manufacturers that I know are, good.
And I think, me personally, I think that is a serious, serious issue that I don't understand how it's not been addressed. It seems like such an oversight that the cross-contamination label is optional and only company specific. It's not a requirement. And like you said, if there's no statement, you're almost more wary because what's going on? There's no clarification at all. Have you had much success calling manufacturers? Because sometimes I do see on my Facebook feed from these groups where a mom will reach out to a company and they give a very vague response. Was that your
It's a
experience too?
boilerplate response. Yes.
Yes.
I've had what I'm glad about is that when someone gives me a response, whether even if it's a bad response, or I'm happy to get the response because then I'll go, nope, I'm not going to buy that. But generally speaking, yes, but you know what that comes from is usually a lot of these companies, they have manufacturing plants all over the United States. And so unless you're giving them a specific UPC label number or maybe a special code on the product,
They don't know.
they don't know which factory it was made in. And so they're going to give you their boilerplate answer, or they do it for the CYA reason, you know. But I've had some pretty good success in finding companies that are nut free and manufacture without nuts. And so I also have found that companies like Walmart and Target, with their own brands, have different manufacturing facilities. But when you call about a specific item, they're very good to find out, okay, it was made in this factory of ours, so this one is okay, but this one is not. So it's just an unfortunate thing that I have to go. I say have to. I prefer to call and go through, or I did. So
And it's still crazy to me that maybe, yes, like you said, Walmart or Target might have answers, but the fact that you have to jump through these hurdles to get those answers seems ridiculously silly.
so
Um,
why don't we have legislation that will change this? We need to have it be mandated. When those companies put those warning labels on there, it's like they're doing it as an accommodation to the
yes.
consumer, which I appreciate. Uh, and sometimes you'll see it where it says made in a nut-free facility, and that's also an accommodation, which I appreciate. But the fact that it's not a requirement, I don't know. And another thing is that like when things change, and so that's another thing that I taught my son is that, we would sometimes have disagreements and he would say, well, I've had this a million times, or I've been there a million times, or and I'm like, things change, factories change, recipes change. It may not be the same as it used to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to do the follow-up every so often.
And just check, at least check the label. There's a prominent protein bar on the market that I think some flavors were made in nut-free facility, and then they changed it in the last few months, where I think now there's cross-contamination risks. And it's just, I guess it boggled me so much. I started my own thing, you know.
I'm so
Uh,
excited. I hope that we get to try it soon.
I'm trying, Marnie. I wish it was faster.
It's okay. We'll
Things are
wait.
taking so
We'll
long.
wait.
Um, but have you have you had any issue? You talked about your close family and your close friends, but have you had any issue outside of that circle where you're at a restaurant, for example, or like I know a common example is you're on a plane and someone's eating peanuts and you're like, sir, like you can't eat that here. I'm sorry. Have you had any incidents where you got a little feisty with someone? You're like your mom fists come up and you're like, I'm gonna bop you if you don't put those nuts
Yeah,
away.
the mama bear. Yeah. As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, we were on a plane. I think my son was probably 12, maybe ish. My husband, my son, and I. And as it was, I think it was Delta at the time. Either way, we were, when Delta is nice enough, at least they were. I don't know about now, but they will say, oh, we won't serve the nuts on our flights that typically serve nuts if there's someone on board that needs that accommodation. And so we were sitting in our seats and a lady was boarding. And so she was walking by us. And as she was walking by us, they made the announcement and said, please refrain from eating nuts on this flight. We do have a passenger that has a nut allergy. Thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. And literally, we were sitting and she was about to walk by us. And she says out loud to the person she was with, I am so sick of these stupid nut allergies. She goes, go ahead and eat your nuts. That is so stupid. And she started telling all the passengers that were around us,
Oh
eat
my
your
gosh.
nuts. I'm over these allergies. That's what she kept saying.
Oh my
And
gosh.
and I looked, so and then she and I locked eyes, and I looked at her and I go, what did you say? And she goes, oh, you're the one with the allergy. I said, my son did not choose his allergy.
Yeah,
And
go mom.
she goes, she kind of just sunk down and she goes, you're right, I'm sorry. And then later, what I thought was really interesting is she later, at the end of the flight when we were leaving, she came to me and apologized again. And she said, I don't know why I said that to you. She said, my son has autism. And she said, I deal with, you know, what he has to go through every single day. I'm so sorry that I was insensitive. So, people have bad days and I get it. And so it was nice of her to go out of her
Wow.
way then to apologize. But that was a weird, we were all like, what is happening? But yeah, so
Yeah.
that
Oh
was
my
that was
goodness.
one of the main experiences that we had where they were. And then the only other I think that I can recall was just we've walked out of restaurants that were, not just not accommodating, but like we can't help you. We don't want to deal with you kind of attitude.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So besides that, nothing really else that I can think of that's besides the bullying stuff and all that.
Besides the bullying lady,
Well, besides the bully.
yeah. The restaurant one is interesting to me. Is that recent? Those experiences are
No,
relatively recent? Okay.
there's been times when we've gone into restaurants and they've just been very like almost probably they didn't want to take a risk, I imagine, and this is early on. So
Yeah.
today it's very different. I think most restaurants are accommodating or can be unless they have peanut oil there. And even since my son has been at college, he said, Mom, it's so different now than when I was little. Everybody
Mhm.
like kind of he was like, I don't know, they expect it, but it's just not like a surprise. People are like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. You know what I mean? It's
No
just
problem. Yeah.
yeah, most of the time. He would tell you that since he's been to college, I would guess probably 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 restaurants he says can accommodate. Um, that's what I bet he
It's
would
pretty good.
say. Yeah, that's my guess.
Yeah. Not 8 or 9. Yeah. I mean, if for me, that's fine. You know what? If I can't go to that one
Do you
restaurant
find
down
that
the road,
too?
I would say I haven't had too much of an issue, to be honest.
Yeah,
You kind of learn your spots though,
yeah,
like fast food or maybe quick dining or whatever spots that you can trust that typically don't serve nuts. That's not
right.
particularly an issue. I do have to keep medications on me. I assume your son does as well.
Well,
I
it's
hope
funny
he
that
does.
you
If you're
say
listening,
that. It's funny that you say that because when I was talking about that transition period of middle school to high school where he wasn't, I don't want to say he wasn't advocating for himself. He certainly did and was, but it was where he wasn't necessarily like announcing his allergy. He would just get up and move, or he would leave, or he just would sit at a restaurant and not eat and say, I'm not hungry, or
Mm,
whatever. Like he just didn't want to be a spectacle of things. But we got to a point in high school where, and even today, on occasion, he doesn't always bring his EpiPen, and I get on him about it. And
as
so,
you
sort of
should.
our meet in the middle of that was if the restaurant has your allergen in house, bring it. If the allergen has never been, Jersey Mike's, I'm going to use that as an example. There's no nuts in the whole place. I've talked to many managers at many locations many times. And so he's arguing about, bringing it sometimes, or it's just not always convenient to go back. You know, as a parent, I said, you're a young adult making your own decisions now. And don't get me wrong, he's done a great job. He's very thorough every time he orders and all of that. But when it comes to a place like a Jersey Mike, for example, or Chipotle, that's another great
I was
example.
thinking of that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they tout about how they have no nuts in house. And so he'll have it maybe in the car, but he
Okay.
doesn't necessarily bring it in. And I say, if there's no nuts in house, I'm not near as concerned as if you're going to a place that has it in the place. So
Yes. Yes. And
that's,
he's
yeah,
And I get it, and I get it too. Like you don't want to inconvenience people. You don't want to schlep around this EpiPen, which is going to expire in a few months because they always do.
yeah.
But it's like it's going to be also inconvenient for the people around you watching watching you on the floor in anaphylaxis. It's a trade-off, right?
Do you
Um,
have the AviQ?
I have that is the more rectangular one,
Yeah, the
the
little one
orange.
that fits in your pocket.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have that one, and I have a normal EpiPen as well.
Okay.
Yes, I have it. Knock on wood. I've actually never had to use it before. Um,
Wow, that's wonderful.
yeah, yeah, not to brag or anything. Anyone's watching it, I'm jealous. But I have, nu numerous amounts of Zyrtec, Benadryl, though that might not even be the right choice anymore. Um, I
But
don't know
so
if
you've
you.
had reactions.
I've had reactions. Nothing significantly anaphylactic, but enough where like, oh, I gotta take something for sure. And
Yeah.
it's mostly the cross contamination. Um,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, that you just
That's
don't
a real
expect.
thing. I mean, it's
Oh, for
obviously a
sure.
real thing. Yeah.
For sure. And you just never know. You never know. I keep it in my wallet. I'm a big fanny pack guy right now. So I keep it in my fanny pack, but I assume that when he was growing up, you had your medications, in
He
your
had a fanny
purse or
pack and he hated wearing it. And we ended up getting him approval to carry his backpack so he didn't have to leave it in his locker. He did not,
oh,
he wore the fanny pack. I remember this in sixth grade, and he's didn't like doing that. He didn't like
yeah.
how it made him feel to wear it. So then we got the approval for him to carry his backpack between class and to lunch and all of that. So he would carry this big backpack just so he could have his EpiPens in the. I said, I don't even care. As long as you have them, that's what I care about. So
You know, maybe if he didn't like the backpack, he can bring like a trench coat and just like, what do you got? I got everything right here. You know?
got my goods. Right.
Yeah. Okay, so before the podcast, Marni, you mentioned, I should have mentioned this earlier, but you mentioned the teal pumpkin. Now, I'd never heard of that. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. At Halloween, there is I don't know if you call it a program or an initiative, I'll call it, called the Teal Pumpkin Project. And we learned about it when my son was young. He was early elementary school. And basically, a teal pumpkin, when you have a teal pumpkin that's set out by your door on Halloween night, it lets allergy families know that you could have a treat for them that's either an allergen-friendly treat or it could be a non-food treat. So it might be something that is like stickers or pencils or whatever it might be for a child that can't maybe have some
That's
of the
cool.
candy at Halloween.
That's
So
cool.
we actually took some of our pumpkins and we painted them teal so that we could put them out to signify for that. And so some of our other family members did the same, just to support my son as well and have those types of things. So it's a cool thing. It's out there. I don't know if it's out there now, but I'm pretty sure there are probably some out there.
I had never heard of that. Is this a new thing or am I just out of the lingo?
No, well, we went on the news because it became a thing back when he was probably in third or fourth grade, locally here. And we brought our teal pumpkins and we showed people on the news, this is what you do for food allergy families that,
That's cool.
want to be able to participate. Halloween is a big stressor for a lot of allergy parents. And so obviously, if you're willing to participate in something like this, it puts them at ease and the kids at ease to be able to get something on Halloween.
How did you get approached by the news?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was on one of the Facebook allergy. I think it was the No Nuts Moms Group of Michigan. That's what it
Really?
was. Yes, they were like, "What families have a teal pumpkin and can come share about their experience on the news tonight?" So my son and I went to that.
No
So
way.
yeah, so it put it out there. So I mean, it's a nice way to be able to support that initiative. And the reason it's teal is because May is Allergy Awareness Month, and the color that they use is teal.
Oh, interesting.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then I'm pretty sure that's why they made the pumpkins teal and to separate and make, have them look different than a regular pumpkin.
Okay, so it's a teal pumpkin. You literally just put it outside your house, and
Like
that's
right
the
next to your
indicator.
jack-o'-lantern, right next to, yeah. And it would just signify that, hey, I have safe treats here at this
That
house.
is super cool. I've never heard
Yeah,
of that. That's
yeah.
so cool. And then you're a celebrity? Are they sending you royalties
No,
for your news segment?
no.
That's super fun. That was what you said like 10 years
He
ago,
was,
or am I making?
no. My son's 22, so it was probably 15. Wait, you think it was 10? Yeah, 10. He was not 12. He had to have been 7 or 8. Maybe it was 8 or 9, somewhere in there. So it's out there though.
That is cool. I've never seen it in person before, but now I'm gonna go looking for. I just missed Halloween too. I should have.
Why don't you Google when you have time, Teal
Yeah.
Pumpkin Project? I think they have a website or whoever they is, but it's an initiative for sure among the
Yeah.
allergy community. That FARE group that I
I
mentioned
was
to you,
just thinking of that.
FARE, I
Yeah.
believe they are a big part of that as well.
Yes, I need to look more into that. That is
Yes.
super cool. Well, Marni, I really appreciate you joining me today. I'm gonna ask you one final question.
Okay.
Um, if you can go back in time to 20 years ago, Marni, is there anything that you would tell her differently, that you would advise her, like you could have done that differently? I wish you did this, or did 20 years ago, Marni absolutely kill it, A plus, 100%?
Ah, wow, you're putting me on the spot.
I
Okay,
am.
let me think about that. I'm very proud of the time investment and the education that he and I have both put into
Yeah.
how he is accomplished. So that part I'm very proud of, for him to be empowered to advocate. So I know that from the education piece, I just wish probably I had done some due diligence a little sooner to truly understand it better earlier. like removing everything early on and such. But outside of that, the only other thing maybe would be like, for example, he's been offered trials. He looked into
Mm,
oral immune therapy.
mm.
Those are things that we just don't know, would that have made a difference for him, because we didn't do them. And so I always wondered about those type things. Um, but
Never thought about
besides
like a
that,
challenge. Challenges are common when kids are young.
he was actually invited to do a walnut challenge. That's the only nut he did not have a reaction to on testing.
Oh, really?
Yes, but he didn't want to do it. He said, I'm not going to eat it anyway because of cross-contamination unless I'm pulling it off a tree. So he
Fair
said, to
enough.
me, there's no point. But no, I don't think so. I think other than maybe starting earlier, and then would something has changed the trajectory of his life had he gone through some of these ways to create an immunity through the oral immune therapy or something like that. Those are things I always wondered about.
Yeah.
And even today, there's still things developing. There's patches and other types of trial things. And so now that he's a young adult, he can make those decisions if he would like to, someday to trial those things.
Yeah. Well, from what I've gathered, it sounds like you did a pretty darn good job. Maybe your babysitter selection. I'm just kidding. Um,
You're
but
right.
it sounds like you did everything you possibly could 20 years ago, and as he got older. So I think you should be proud of yourself for the work that you put in. Are there nuts in the house now ever since he left? Are
I
they?
do just walnuts
Oh,
because he's
really?
not he's not
Okay.
allergic to walnuts. But I keep them tucked away, and um, yeah, that's the only thing I brought back. But one thing I will say, that he has traveled the world. And one thing I just thought maybe you would like to have this as a piece for your viewers, is that he has traveled to so many countries and had safe experiences. And in doing that, every country that he's been to, he's gotten what they call a chef's card or an allergy card in the native language of the country, so that when he's at a restaurant, he can hand that card to the restaurant and they can read it in their own native language. My fear growing up, we never took international trips because I always wondered if we'd have the language barrier. And so I know that he does not let this define him, and he doesn't let it stop him. And he's very confident that he can handle it. So that's one thing that I feel good about. So
The card, I'm glad you brought that up. I've heard of people having some sort of card in the States, but not very common. I've never seen one personally. Um, what countries was he in that accepted those cards?
so I got the card. There's a couple different websites in the US
Mm.
where you can order. Basically, you go on and it says you can choose, my allergy is whatever it is, and then you can choose the wording on it, or it will pre-do the wording for you, and then you pick the language,
No
and it
kidding.
does up the card, and you can pay for it almost like a credit card and have it sent to you, or you can just print it off digitally and have it laminated. And
Oh, really?
that's what he's done. And so when you say really, he just had them ready to go. But Switzerland, which they have, I know it's French and Italian there, and English. A lot of them speak English, but he went to Dubai, so he had it in English and in Arabic. He went to Italy. He went to France. Um, Canada is, French and English mainly, but he's
Mm.
about to go to South Africa. And
Oh,
so, he's had a little bit. He told me he went to Monaco. He had a few experiences where when they read the card, they could not accommodate him. But because they had it clearly in that card, they could easily say yes or no to him. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
so I would say most of the places were good. He had a handful of places he couldn't go to. But again, that's just like in the US.
Yes. This this card, it's like a gold Amex for us allergy folks. Just like, here you go.
Yeah,
Take it.
it's true.
It's like
Once I knew that he
status.
could get that, I felt so much better because, of course, as a nut allergy parent or an allergy parent, you read so many stories about young people passing away
Ugh,
from these
yeah.
tragedies. And so I had read plenty about kids in other countries where there was a language barrier and such. So at the same time, I can't stop him from living and doing what he wants to do. So that was kind
You
of the way to handle that.
you did your role as a mama bear. Now you gotta let him off.
Right.
But Marni, again, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed our conversation. We'll get these bars to you one day, I promise. They're
Okay.
coming. I promise.
Good. Just keep me
I hope you.
posted.
Of course. Again, Marni, thank you, and we'll be in touch.